What happens when one of the most powerful voices in global pop culture walks onto a daytime talk show stage and refuses to play the role everyone expects her to play? What happens when the carefully scripted comfort of live television collides with raw honesty, simmering frustration, and a woman who has spent her entire life refusing to be boxed in? This is not just another celebrity interview. This is the moment the air shifted. This is the moment The View stopped being a conversation and became a confrontation. Before we go any further, if you love deep, dramatic breakdowns of shocking celebrity moments, make sure you subscribe to The Truth Narrator, hit that like button, and comment below, because stories like this are only getting more explosive. The studio lights burned hot, brighter than usual, casting a polished glow over the familiar table where opinions are traded like currency. The audience clapped on cue as Rihanna stepped out, dressed in a way only she could manage, effortlessly commanding, unapologetically bold, calm on the surface, but carrying something heavy behind her eyes. To the casual viewer, it looked like another high-profile appearance, another promo tour, another friendly chat. But there was tension in the room that couldn't be scripted. You could feel it before a single word was spoken. Joy Behar smiled first, a practiced smile, the kind that comes from decades of television experience. She leaned forward slightly, hands folded, eyes scanning Rihanna with curiosity, and something else. Anticipation, maybe. Or challenge. Rihanna returned the smile, but hers didn't linger. She sat down slowly, crossed her legs, and glanced briefly at the audience, who erupted again in applause. She nodded in thanks, but her jaw tightened. She already knew this wasn't going to be easy. The conversation started light. It always does. Fashion. Music. Motherhood. Rihanna spoke smoothly, her voice steady, her words measured. She laughed when expected. She thanked the hosts politely. But beneath every answer, there was restraint, like someone holding back a storm. The camera cut between the pain lists, and Joy's expression shifted. She tilted her head, tapping her pen lightly against the table. "So, Rihanna," Joy said, her tone casual but edged with something sharper, "you've been very vocal lately. About politics. About culture. About things that, well, some people think entertainers should stay out of." The audience murmured softly. Rihanna didn't respond immediately. She inhaled slowly, eyes lowering for just a second, then lifted her gaze directly to Joy. "I don't think silence has ever protected anyone," Rihanna said calmly. A ripple moved through the audience. A few claps. A few gasps. Joy raised an eyebrow. "Well," Joy replied, "some would say your influence is exactly why you should be careful. Millions of people listen to you. Don't you think there's a responsibility to not inflame things?" That word, inflame, hung in the air. Rihanna's lips pressed together. You could see it now. The shift. The moment where politeness begins to crack. "Careful about what?" Rihanna asked. Her voice was still controlled, but firmer now. "About telling the truth. About speaking from lived experience." Joy leaned back slightly. "About pushing narratives," she said. "You're an artist. People come to you for music, not moral lectures." The studio went quiet. Too quiet. The kind of silence that feels loud. Rihanna straightened in her chair. Her hands, resting on her lap, curled slightly into fists. "With respect," Rihanna said, her eyes never leaving Joy. "People have always come to artists for truth. Music, art, it's never been separate from reality. Ever." Joy laughed lightly, but it didn't land. "That's a romantic idea," she said. "But this is real life. And sometimes celebrity opinions oversimplify complex issues." That was it. The line had been crossed. Rihanna leaned forward now, closing the physical distance between herself and the table. Her voice didn't rise, but it sharpened, like a blade finally drawn. "What's oversimplified," she said, "is telling people with power to be quiet because their truth makes you uncomfortable." The audience reacted instantly. Applause burst out, scattered but growing. A few people stood. The camera briefly caught Whoopi Goldberg glancing between Joy and Rihanna, sensing the shift, knowing this moment was no longer controlled. Joy tried to interject. "I'm not saying be quiet." "But you are," Rihanna cut in, her tone unwavering. "That's exactly what you're saying. You're saying my voice is too loud, too influential, too inconvenient." Gasps echoed through the studio. This was live, unedited, unfiltered. Joy's smile was gone now. "I'm saying there's a difference between advocacy and virtue signaling." Rihanna exhaled slowly, shaking her head. Virtue signaling is speaking without risk. Everything I say costs me something. Fans, deals, opportunities. And I still say it. The audience erupted. Applause thundered through the room, drowning out Joy's next words. Rihanna sat back, eyes glistening, not with tears, but with intensity, with conviction. For the first time, Joy Behar looked unsettled. She adjusted her glasses, glanced toward the other hosts, then back at Rihanna. Well, Joy said stiffly, that's one way to see it. Rihanna nodded once. It's the only way I know how. The camera zoomed in on Rihanna's face. Calm, controlled, but burning. The kind of fire that doesn't flicker, it waits. And as the applause continued, as producers shifted nervously behind the scenes, one thing became painfully clear. This was no longer an interview. This was a line being drawn, live on television. And it was only the beginning. The applause faded, but the tension didn't. It clung to the air like static, buzzing beneath the surface, impossible to ignore. The producers cut briefly to a wide shot, hoping the distance might cool the moment, but it only made the divide clearer. Rihanna sat composed, shoulders squared, eyes forward. Joy Behar shifted in her seat, lips pressed tight, her fingers tapping against the table in a rhythm that betrayed irritation more than thought. Whoopi Goldberg cleared her throat softly, the unofficial signal that things had gone off script. All right, she said, her voice calm but alert. Let's take a breath here. Rihanna turned her head slightly toward Whoopi, offering a respectful nod. Joy, however, leaned back in, unwilling to let the moment slip away. But Rihanna, Joy said, cutting through the pause, don't you think there's a danger when celebrities position themselves as authorities? People follow you without questioning. That's not power to take lightly. Rihanna turned back, slowly, deliberately. Power exists whether I speak or not, she replied. The difference is whether I pretend it doesn't. The audience murmured again. A low, restless sound. Rihanna continued, her voice steady, but now layered with something deeper. History, perhaps. Memory. I didn't wake up one day and decide to be influential, she said. I was given a microphone by the world. And then I watched what happened when people like me stayed silent. Joy frowned. But silence isn't always complicity. No, Rihanna said, nodding, but comfort often is. That landed hard. A sharp intake of breath rippled through the crowd. Joy's eyes narrowed. So now you're saying people who disagree with you are just comfortable? Joy asked. I'm saying, Rihanna replied carefully, that it's comfortable to debate someone's tone instead of addressing what they are saying. The table fell quiet again. Even the other hosts had gone still, their expressions tense, eyes flicking between the two women like spectators at a tennis match that had suddenly turned personal. Joy adjusted her glasses, her voice cooling. You're very confident in your perspective. I have to be, Rihanna said. Confidence is what it takes to survive when you're constantly told to be grateful and quiet at the same time. The word quiet echoed. The audience reacted immediately, applause, louder now, more unified. Joy raised a hand slightly, signaling disagreement. I don't think anyone here is telling you to be quiet, she insisted. Rihanna smiled, but it was a sad smile. Intent doesn't erase impact. That was the moment something shifted in Joy's posture. Her shoulders stiffened. Her tone sharpened. Well, impact goes both ways, Joy said. When you speak, people listen. And sometimes what they hear divides more than it unites. Rihanna leaned forward again. Not aggressively. Purposefully. Unity without truth is just silence with better branding. The audience erupted. This time, there was no mistaking it. Clapping thundered through the studio. A few cheers broke out. Someone shouted yes, from the back. Whoopi raised her eyebrows, impressed despite herself. Sunny Hostin glanced down at her notes, then back up, sensing that this was no longer a segment, it was a moment. Joy waited for the noise to die down. When it did, she spoke again, slower now. You seem to be suggesting that anyone who challenges your stance is afraid of the truth. I'm suggesting, Rihanna replied, that challenging who is allowed to speak is easier than challenging why they are speaking. Joy let out a short laugh. That's very convenient. Rihanna's eyes didn't waver. Truth usually is, once you stop running from it. The camera cut to a close-up of Joy's face. The smile was gone completely now. This wasn't playful debate anymore. This was personal. So let me ask you directly, Joy said. Do you believe entertainers should be shaping public opinion? Rihanna didn't hesitate. I believe humans shape public opinion. Entertainers are humans with platforms. Joy opened her mouth to respond, but Rihanna continued, her voice gaining momentum. And if the issue is that my platform is bigger than yours, then say that. Don't dress it up as concern. A collective gasp swept through the audience. Even Whoopi leaned back slightly, eyes widening. That line cut close. Too close. Joy's jaw tightened. That's not fair. Rihanna shrugged lightly. Fairness has never been evenly distributed. The silence that followed was heavier than anything before. No applause. No murmurs. Just the hum of studio lights and the faint rustle of cue cards. Joy stared at Rihanna, searching for something. Hesitation, maybe. Doubt. She found none. You know, Joy said finally, her voice lower, more restrained. I've been doing this a long time. I've seen movements come and go. Passion fades. Rihanna's expression softened, just slightly. Some of us don't have the luxury of waiting for it to fade. That was the crack. The hairline fracture that split the conversation wide open. Joy blinked. What's that supposed to mean? It means, Rihanna said gently, that some issues aren't theoretical. They are lived. Daily. The audience responded again, but this time it wasn't explosive. It was emotional. Sustained applause. Heads nodding. Faces tight with recognition. Joy looked away, just for a second. Toward the table. Toward her notes. Toward anything that wasn't Rihanna's unflinching gaze. Whoopi finally stepped in, her voice firm. All right, let's pause here. But even as she spoke, it was clear, the pause wouldn't stop what had already been set in motion. Because this wasn't about winning an argument anymore. It was about who gets to speak, who gets believed, and who gets told, on live television, to know their place. And neither woman was backing down. The pause Whoopi called for barely registered. It was like trying to hold back a tide with a raised hand. The moment had already spilled beyond control, beyond format, beyond the neat boundaries of daytime television. The audience sensed it too. They weren't just watching anymore. They were witnessing something raw, something unscripted, something that would be replayed and dissected long after the cameras stopped rolling. Rihanna shifted in her seat, finally exhaling a breath she seemed to have been holding for years. Joy Behar straightened her papers, a familiar defensive gesture, buying herself a second to recalibrate. But her eyes betrayed her. This wasn't going how she expected. Whoopi leaned forward. Rihanna, she said carefully, I hear what you're saying, but let's try to keep this respectful. Rihanna finished softly. Whoopi paused, then nodded. Yes. Rihanna met her gaze. I have been. The audience reacted instantly. A sharp wave of applause cut through the studio. Joy's lips tightened again. No one said you weren't respectful, Joy interjected. But you are being confrontational. Rihanna turned back to her, slow and deliberate. Confrontation isn't disrespect. It's discomfort. Joy scoffed lightly. There's a difference. Only if you're used to being comfortable, Rihanna replied. That word again. Comfortable. It hit like a drumbeat, steady and relentless. Joy leaned forward now, matching Rihanna's posture. So now I'm comfortable? That's your read. I don't know you personally, Rihanna said, her voice calm but resolute. I know what this moment represents. And what does it represent? Joy challenged. It represents, Rihanna said, choosing her words with care, a long history of telling people with platforms to shrink themselves so conversations stay easy. The studio buzzed. Even the crew behind the cameras shifted. This was no longer a celebrity defending herself. This was a cultural reckoning playing out in real time. Joy shook her head. You're projecting. Rihanna nodded. Maybe. But projections come from somewhere. Joy laughed again, sharper this time. You're very good at turning criticism into oppression. The audience audibly reacted. A mix of boos and gasps cut through the air. Rihanna's expression hardened, not angry, but focused. Criticism questions ideas, she said. What you're doing questions my right to speak. That is not true, Joy snapped. Then why does this only come up? Rihanna asked. When people like me speak loudly. Silence. Heavy. Uncomfortable. The kind that makes producers sweat. Joy opened her mouth, then closed it. She looked briefly toward Whoopi, then back to Rihanna. You think this is about race, Joy said cautiously. I think, Rihanna replied, it's about power. The audience erupted again. This time, even louder. Sustained applause echoed off the studio walls. Someone stood up. Then another. The energy shifted from debate to declaration. Joy waited it out, her face set. When the noise finally died down, she spoke, slower, measured. You know, she said, I've fought my whole life to be heard. Don't tell me about power. Rihanna's expression softened for the first time. I'm not erasing your fight, she said quietly. I'm asking you not to erase mine. That line cut through the room like a blade. The audience's response wasn't loud this time. It was emotional. You could hear it in the exhale, in the murmured agreement, in the subtle nods. Joy looked at Rihanna for a long moment. Really looked. And for a split second, something flickered. Recognition, maybe. Or fatigue. But where does it end? Joy asked. Everyone shouting. Everyone certain they are right. Rihanna leaned back, folding her hands together. It ends when we stop being afraid of uncomfortable truths. And who decides what's true? Joy pressed. We all do, Rihanna replied. By listening instead of policing. That word, policing, sparked another wave of reaction. The tension was no longer contained between two chairs at a table. It had spread outward, infecting every corner of the studio. Sunny Hostin finally spoke, her voice cautious but firm. I think what Rihanna is saying is that lived experience matters. Joy glanced at Sunny, surprised. I never said it didn't. But you implied, Sunny said, that some voices should be quieter than others. Joy bristled. That's not. Rihanna raised a hand slightly. Not to interrupt, but to steady the moment. This isn't about you versus me, she said. It's about what happens when people with influence decide whose voice is too much. Joy sighed, rubbing her temple. You're making this bigger than it needs to be. Rihanna met her eyes. It's been big. We just don't always acknowledge it. The audience clapped again, but this time it was slower. Thoughtful. Heavy with meaning. Joy leaned back, crossing her arms. A defensive posture. So what do you want, Rihanna? Applause. Agreement. Rihanna shook her head. I want honesty. And if people don't agree with you? That's fine, Rihanna said. Disagreement doesn't scare me. Dismissal does. That was the line. The one that would be quoted. Shared. Debated. The camera zoomed in on Joy's face. She looked tired now. Not defeated, but strained. Well, she said quietly, this has certainly turned into something. Rihanna nodded. Truth usually does. The studio fell silent once more. No one rushed to fill it this time. Because everyone knew. They were standing in the middle of a moment that would not be forgotten. And somewhere beyond the studio walls, beyond the live broadcast, the internet was already waking up. Clips were being cut. Tweets drafted. Opinions sharpened. The storm hadn't hit yet, but you could feel it coming. The silence that settled over the studio was different now. It wasn't tense in the same sharp, confrontational way. It was heavy, reflective, almost reverent. The kind of quiet that follows an emotional rupture, when everyone present knows they've crossed into territory that can't be neatly wrapped up before a commercial break. The red live light still glowed, but time felt suspended. Whoopi glanced toward the producers off camera. A subtle nod. The segment was technically over, but no one moved. Joy Behar uncrossed her arms, then folded them again, as if unsure where to place herself. Rihanna remained still, composed, her face calm but resolute. She had said what she came to say, whether she intended to or not. Well, Whoopi finally said, her voice softer than before. This is why conversations matter. The audience responded with applause, but it wasn't explosive. It was sustained, respectful, emotional. People weren't cheering a winner. They were acknowledging a moment. Joy forced a small smile. I think we can all agree on that. Rihanna nodded, meeting Joy's eyes one last time. I hope so. The camera pulled back. The hosts thanked Rihanna for being there. The audience stood as she rose from her chair. Applause followed her all the way off the stage, louder now, freer, no longer restrained by the rules of debate. Rihanna paused briefly, turned, and gave a small wave. Not triumphant, not defiant, just present. And then the screen faded to commercial. But the moment didn't end there. Within minutes, social media ignited. Clips of the exchange spread like wildfire, cropped, captioned, slowed down for emphasis. Rihanna's lines appeared in bold white text over dramatic music. Comfort often is. Unity without truth is just silence. Dismissal scares me. Each quote became a spark. Twitter exploded first. Support poured in from fans, activists, artists, and everyday viewers who felt seen. Rihanna said what needed to be said. That wasn't an interview. That was history. Joy wasn't ready for that energy. But backlash followed just as quickly. Commentators accused Rihanna of being disrespectful, of hijacking the show, of overreacting. Headlines popped up within the hour. Rihanna clashes with Joy Behar on live TV. Did Rihanna go too far on The View? A conversation or a confrontation? Entertainment news panels replayed the footage on loop. Body language experts weighed in. Political commentators dissected intent. Some praised Joy for challenging celebrity activism. Others criticized her for tone policing. The moment fractured audiences along familiar lines. Backstage, sources whispered that producers were shaken. The segment had gone off the rails, but ratings were already spiking. Internally, emails flew. PR teams went into overdrive. Joy's camp released a brief statement emphasizing healthy debate. Rihanna's team stayed silent. That silence spoke volumes. By nightfall, Rihanna finally posted. Not a rant. Not a rebuttal. Just a single line on her Instagram story. Truth doesn't need permission. The post went viral instantly. Celebrities chimed in. Some openly sided with Rihanna. Others carefully hedged. A few stayed conspicuously quiet. Fans flooded Joy Behar's mentions, some supportive, others furious. Think pieces followed. Long threads. Reaction videos. Podcasts recorded emergency episodes. And in living rooms across the country, people argued. Not about Rihanna. Not about Joy. But about voice. About power. About who gets to speak, and who gets told to soften their edges for the sake of comfort. The next morning, The View opened with a different energy. Joy addressed the moment briefly. She stood by her perspective but acknowledged the intensity. These conversations aren't easy, she said. But they are necessary. Rihanna didn't respond publicly again. She didn't need to, because the moment had already outgrown both of them. It lived now in comment sections, in classrooms, in group chats, in late-night debates. People who had never watched The View watched the clip. People who had never followed Rihanna weighed in. It became a cultural Rorschach test, revealing more about the viewer than the exchange itself. And that's the thing about moments like these. They are never really about who won. They are about what was exposed. A fault line. A tension. A truth that had been sitting quietly, until someone said it out loud. Live, with no filter and no safety net. Rihanna walked onto that stage as a guest. She walked off as a catalyst. So now, the question isn't whether she was right or wrong. The question is, how did it make you feel? Did it challenge you? Did it frustrate you? Did it resonate? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I want to hear your take. And if you want more deep dives into explosive, unscripted moments like this, make sure you subscribe to The Truth Narrator. Like this video, share it with someone who needs to see it, and stay tuned, because the next story might be even more shocking.